In the top stories, St. Kitts and Nevis observes Child Abuse Prevention Week. Workshop held to formulate policy on invasive species, and Attorney General says term limits are part of overall reform plans. The details to these stories and more after the break.
I saw the promotion online for the AKT bikes, went down to court, and I met Sheena, who was my representative. He gave me his advice on all the bikes available, and I made the best decision with getting my GP 180. I was very surprised at the way it rode because the price was very low for the bike and it's very quick for its size, very low on gas. I often find myself forgetting to top it off at the gas station. My name is Atala and I live to ride my AKT.
Mosoka, 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 mosoka.
Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Major Newscast. I'm Jason Davis. As St. Kitts and Nevis observes Child Abuse Prevention Week, the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs is encouraging the general public to be vigilant of possible incidents of child abuse and to reach out. Junior Minister responsible for Social Development, the Honourable Iseline Phillip, gave an address in support of the occasion where she called on everyone to get involved.
As adults, we should all know what child abuse is and have an idea of the signs and symptoms of child abuse, as well as to know where resources are available to address known cases of child abuse taking place. If you are unaware or would like guidance on finding information, please reach out to the Ministry or Department of Probation and Child Protection Services. You may want to consider becoming a scout leader, offer to teach a baking course for children, volunteer to read children's stories at the local library, or teach a Sunday school class. Having adults involved in these kinds of activities really helps to ensure that children are not only properly supervised, but are also actively engaged in positive ways that help in growing their confidence and advancing their development.
The public is also encouraged to support the efforts of the Awareness Week locally.
The color blue has been identified as the primary color for child abuse prevention and World Children's Day. The Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs is encouraging persons to get creative and sport something blue on Friday, November 25th, as we stand in solidarity against child abuse. You may consider wearing something blue, painting your nails blue, make a blue cake, or dyeing your hair to mark the occasion and to showcase your creativity in support of child abuse prevention. However you choose to wear your blue, we encourage you to take a photo and post on social media with the hashtag GoBlueDaySKN.
The ministry said it intends to increase awareness of the issue throughout the week and beyond by highlighting child abuse prevention strategies and by strengthening alliances with community groups and stakeholders with the aim of providing safer environments for children. And speaking of stakeholders from various sectors have been taking part in a workshop to tackle the impact of invasive species. A validation workshop on a draft National Invasive Species Strategy and Action Plan was held at the Solid Waste Management Conference Room on Monday morning. It was hosted by the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Agriculture and saw participants from the Department of Agriculture, Environment, the Ministry of Tourism and the Customs and Excise Department. The workshop was one of a multi-part process to construct a policy that would lay out procedures to prevent, detect, control, and manage invasive species such as pink hibiscus mealybug, silverleaf whitefly, the cactus moth, tropical bontic, and lionfish. Project Director Evan Parry spoke about why it's important to tackle invasive alien species.
Invasive alien species are those species whose introduction and spread outside of their natural habitats threaten biological diversity. Invasive alien species are recognized as one of the leading threats to biodiversity, considered only second to habitat loss in terms of negative impact. They are imposing enormous cost on agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and other enterprises.
Diana Francis is a consultant from the International Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, or IICA, working with St. Kitts on formulating the action plan. She said in putting together the plan, there must be a simple, clear, overarching goal, such as protect St. Kitts and Nevis.
People might ask, why such a simple goal? In today's world, simplicity is what you need, because simplicity, you have to understand what you're doing. So we are not talking to each other. The strategy people are not talking to strategy. We're talking to regular, ordinary citizens who have to take part, take ownership, and be part of the management problem, a management issue, right? So we have to be very simple, because complicated sentences create confusion, and it blocks people from doing anything to begin with. So everybody will understand what it is. We want to protect St. Kitts from what does not belong, full stop.
This is a 3-year project involving 7 countries, and St. Kitts and Nevis is at an advanced stage of the process. A similar workshop was held in Nevis on Monday afternoon. The document is expected to be finalized in about 6 weeks. In other news, Attorney General the Honorable Garth Wilkins says the government will be taking a holistic approach towards matters of governance in an effort to address several issues. He was at the time answering a question about pursuing term limits for prime ministers during the Prime Minister's most recent press conference. Mr. Wilkins said the government will not approach these serious matters in a haphazard way.
The Constitution is actually famous in the region for having provisions to keep people out of Parliament. And we're no longer going to proceed in that type of way. That is why the Cabinet has instructed me to start to look at wholesome constitutional reform. And that is why we formed a joint constitutional review committee with the legal department in the NIA. We are going to sit down around a table and we're going to look at the flaws in our constitutional system, our constitutional document, and we're going to craft a document that suits the purposes of all the people in our federation.
He outlined some of the specific areas to be addressed and emphasized that the people will be involved in the decision-making process.
We're going to fix the issues surrounding the NIA and the federal government. We're going to address the term limits. We're going to deal with all sorts of matters that are in our Constitution in a holistic, mature way, in a democratic way. We're going to consult with the people. We're going to consider whether we should have a fixed election date so we don't have premature callings of elections like similar other islands are doing right now. We're going to have those discussions with the people. It's not going to just be the people in the room making that decision.
He said the goal is to craft a modern, realistic, fair, and equitable constitution that does not target specific individuals. After the break, ECCB warns about investing in cryptocurrency, and Robotics Association speaks about recent global challenge competition. Stay with us.
Flow, oh, oh. Jingle all the way home to flow, where the speed is faster and price is better. All the way home to flow, merry connections that bring us together, yeah.
Christmas starts the moment you bundle your Flow internet with your Flow mobile, because when you do, you get a free laptop. Plus, you get 100 megabits per second internet speed, 20 gigabytes of data, 4,000 local minutes, and unlimited WhatsApp and YouTube.
All the way home to flow.
Here are your Hartford Value Mart IG Value Club Blue Tag specials.
Running November 17th to the 30th.
Nestle Splash flavored water, just $7.99. Bird's Eye Steam fresh vegetables, $5.99. Culinary Circle pizzas, $29.99. Shoppers Value ice cream, just $35.99. Essential everyday napkins, $12.49. IGA and essential everyday salad dressings $9.49. And now our very low weekly
Value deals! Kellogg's Cornflakes $19.99. Essential everyday canned vegetables $3.99. Colgate toothpaste $9.99. IG and essential everyday cream cheese $6.49. Essential everyday ketchup $4.99. Kraft real mayonnaise $18.99. Shop smart, shop value mart. Tell them in Spanish.
sea listo y haga sus compras aquí a Value Mart.
Want to get away? Now you can.
Stop standing in long ATM lines to withdraw cash. Use your national debit or black cards to complete a wide variety of transactions at supermarkets, variety stores, gas stations, pharmacies, and more. Shop online at the most popular websites and stores for quality brands using your national debit or black cards. And take back your time to enjoy all the things that you love to do. Remember, instead of waiting in long ATM lines to withdraw cash, use your national bank cards today.
National Bank, always here.
Sorrel making, hey, punch and drinking, hey, ham and turkey baking. Now this is Christmas. A new home, land for you. It's time to get what you always wanted. Ultra low rates, up to 100% financing and more. Make it happen for yourself and your family. Let Republic help you have the best Christmas ever. Sorrel making, hey, punch and drinking, hey, ham and turkey baking. Now this is Christmas.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Welcome back. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is encouraging the public to research thoroughly before investing in crypto assets. In a statement issued on the weekend, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank said it is aware of the recent collapse of FTX, registered as FTX Digital Markets Limited. Headquartered in the Bahamas, which was reported to be a significant player in the crypto space. The Securities Commission of the Bahamas has since suspended the registration of this entity and appointed provisional liquidators for FTX Digital Markets Limited. This has not been the first significant fallout in the crypto space this year. The statement from the ECCB said, in light of these unfortunate events, the bank encourages the public to exercise due diligence and to be mindful of the high level of risk crypto assets present. It continued, quote, "Crypto assets are inherently volatile and speculative. As such, consumers should be aware of the risk of the loss of their investment, fraud, and cyber attacks, especially in jurisdictions where the sector is unregulated," end quote. A list of regulated entities can be found on the websites of the national regulators in each of the ECCB member countries. For St. Kitts and Nevis, the websites are www.fsrc.kn and www.nevisfsrc.com. Following the 2022 edition of the First Global in Switzerland, the St. Kitts Nevis Robotics Association is proud of the efforts of the team during the competition. St. Kitts and Nevis placed 23rd overall and maintained its #1 ranking in the OECS and #2 position in the Caribbean. Speaking with ZIZ News, SKNRA founder Dr. Ricardo Neal gave indications of plans to honor the members of the team.
We also have a dinner that is coming up, which will be inviting out all the members. We have close to 350 members and climbing, and so we'll be, having everybody in one room enjoying their successes. We also have an award ceremony for the students who traveled and participated from the different schools, because we feel that we must, let them feel comfortable that they have done well in representing St. Kitts and Nevis.
Recounting their experiences, team members Everell Williams, Michael Shaw, and Hitin Samtani spoke of what they enjoyed most.
Meeting new people and their will as well Because when I was there and the team was there, and we go around seeing other people's build and we communicate, we see so much interesting bots that has been unique.
The people honestly, because at every single point, just being on the plane, because you see different team members, like different teams from different countries going to the competition, and then you meeting them in the hotel to the competition every day. So, and then yeah, just talking, joking with them, really nice.
Mostly everything, but I don't really know what would be on top because all of them were very interesting. So like being in Switzerland itself, like the scenery was very wonderful. It's a big country, but the people there are very nice. Also at the event, people were very, very sociable, and everything just felt huge.
Team St. Kitts and Nevis has been participating in the first global challenge and has consistently placed highly in global rankings. Persons can join by sending a message to the SKNRA Facebook page, as their website is currently being revamped. From the 5th to the 7th of December, the Government of Canada will provide biometric processing of visa applications in St. Kitts and Nevis. This means that persons applying for a Canadian visa can have their fingerprints recorded in St. Kitts and Nevis instead of having to travel abroad. According to a statement from Carib PR Wire, the processing will be conducted by Canadian officials, and this special arrangement is aimed at St. Kitts and Nevis nationals who anticipate travel to Canada, persons who have already applied online or by mail for a visa, work or study permit, or for permanent residence for Canada and have received their biometric instruction letter, and also for nationals of other countries living in St. Kitts and Nevis. They're also required to provide their biometric information for planned travel to Canada. When applying for a Canadian visa, nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis as well as nationals from other countries must provide biometric information such as fingerprints and an identity photograph. Visa applicants are encouraged to complete an online visa application as soon as possible in order to take advantage of this December opportunity. The collection of biometric information will take place from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Wednesday, 5th to the 7th of December at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort. Directions to the precise location within the hotel will be provided upon arrival. Monday, the 28th of November is the last day to make an appointment. Visa applicants must have a scheduled appointment and must bring along the required biometrics instruction letter to their appointment. In order to book an appointment for biometrics collection, you're asked to please email bdgtn-visa@international.gc.ca. Coming up in regional news, a new program launched in Grenada to empower young men. The details.
Dang thing. Hello? Hello, hello, hello. I am flying blind. I cannot see or hear. Hmm? Hello, hello. Yeah, She had a case in the operating room quickly. So hello, hi, Tommy. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Oh, hi, Ernest.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Good to see you.
Yes. Good.
This
How are you doing?
this is not Mrs. Sonia Smith, by the way. That's what's on the screen. I'm very well, thanks, Ernest.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, yes, of course, of course.
So I'm at the airport, so I'm improvising.
Actually, I think, no, the host, what the thing is, can we switch quickly, Jordan? Yes, it is. One, two. Putting pressure on the I want to not look fat, so which way?
Who is that?
That's Dr. Madu, but they have. Can we change the title on the screen? It says Sonia Smith.
You could just have head view, you don't have to go below. Okay.
Okay. Tommy, Kira, can you? I think your camera is off and you're on mute.
Tommy is here, but she's having some technical difficulty.
Oh, okay, but I can see you.
Hi.
Hi.
She says, so can I leave? I can't hear anything. Is something happening?
I think what might happen is because if you're in two separate locations, you can't use the same link. Is that correct?
Correct. One person.
Only one person
Okay,
can use
I'm
the
going
link.
to jump off.
Yeah. So.
I'm going to jump off and have her jump on.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
You're just going to be a
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kira. So good to see you. Bye bye.
Yes. These links are participants.
Yeah. I remember that. So I think that's what the issue is that they're having.
So what are you talking about?
Huh?
No,
but I mean, so we started with this CPR and all the stuff about cardiovascular care and emergencies overall and handling them. But I think it's really about, what this means in terms of that new frontier we are in healthcare in St. Kitts in terms of where we're headed. What does that mean? How does the SKND, because you're here as the president, right? What are some of the things that are afoot, what has already happened that at least raises the level of hope in terms of individuals, in terms of the care they'll be receiving. How do we support our government? What are some of the partnerships we look to build and so on? Just really how we turn healthcare on. The things we talk about behind closed doors. The sanitized version of it.
The sterile version of it. Okay. No, it's a little 2-month-old I had with a testicular torsion.
The names are. Dr. Madu is in the lounge at the airport somewhere. Are you in Miami, Ernest, or where?
Yeah, I'm at Miami.
Yeah, okay.
So they need to get they should know me by now. So my name.
Yeah. Okay, so we have Ernest Kerr, but I think they're going to put Joy now at the bottom, and then we have
You, Patrick Matt.
I have to apologize to the St. Kitts audience, viewing audience, for the late start. To this, I was Oh, hello, Tommy. How are you? Good to see you.
Hi, good. Hello.
Thank you for joining. I think once we get the names correct, we should be on our way. We have to apologize to everyone here in this country for our late start, but good things come to those who wait. Oh, all these acronyms behind my name make me look like a sentence I don't really like.
And it's only two.
No, there's MD, MPH, LL,
Oh, that I didn't see.
Can you remove all those things for me, please?
Well, that's you. Is you. So why you vex?
In 2 minutes.
But I don't see my name though.
Okay. Can you remove all this? I just put Dr. Alpier. I'll just put Alpier. I'll just put Dr. Alpier. All this, I make me look. Come on, I still am more qualified than Ernest for sure. Yeah, just. No, please, no, please, sir. No. Listen, please, no. We have a renowned cardiologist in Ernest here, as Dr. Ernest Madon. You have all these things behind my name. No, I think that the two most important people are the ones in the top screen, Tommy and Ernest.
So I must be top liver.
Huh?
I must be top.
No, I said two most important. The very important persons here in the VIPs here. She's a true July born. I wonder who else is born in July.
I just got demoted.
Oh, thank you. That's much better.
It looks lighter.
Yeah, of course. That all that behind that is. About people were more confused, wondering what is the meaning of all this. This is a special episode. I think this is the first time you and I have appeared together on the show since.
And we are the two hosts.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? That should just be the thing, right?
I just lost picture again.
Yeah, I think we're starting up, so that's why. So I can't see anyone right now, so I'm flying blind. So I think we're going to start. Hello, welcome, good evening everyone. Welcome to what I think is perhaps one of the most special episodes of Healthwise that I have had the privilege of co-hosting, and you will see soon why it's a co-hosting and not me as the primary host this evening. I am ably supported by my dear friend, a very esteemed colleague of mine, and a well-known face to the St. Kitts Healthwise TV audience in Dr. Joy Woodley. Thank you, Joy, for being here, for being my co-host, making this job so much easier for me today, because wherever I fall short, I'm sure you will be more than happy to fill in the gap. But even more importantly, we have two other guests joining us, and they are virtual. One is renowned cardiologist and the chairman of the Heart Institute in the Caribbean in Jamaica. I have Dr. Ernest Madu, who is a nuclear cardiologist. Dr. Madu was on St. Kitts a few weeks ago. And also, I have Mrs. Tommy Jordan, who is the owner, and I'm not sure what other titles you have, but certainly she owns CPR Solutions, which Tommy was also here on St. Kitts just a few weeks ago as well. Some of you would have seen her perhaps in the news if you paid attention to that, and also in the newspapers. And we were about to talk about some of the things that we did here a few weeks ago, what that means in terms of the training that so many of our healthcare workers underwent, both here in St. Kitts and in Nevis. But the reason why does this even matter? Why do I have a cardiologist and a CPR expert here in the house with me, joining me from Arizona? I think it's lost on no one. I'm not sure how many of you are listening this evening, but I'm almost certain, and I can take a fly on that one, that almost every one of us, in some form or fashion, has had the misfortune of losing someone very dear to us to heart disease, a heart attack in all its flavors, or heart disease in any form that it takes, from heart failure to all the other variations of heart disease that we know too well. Why is this important again? Because in October I watched in horror as one of my favorite Haitian artists. I love Haitian music, and in October this year, about sometime about 18th of October, we watched as a 41-year-old Mika Ben fell lifelessly after entertaining a massive crowd in Haiti, in France, fell after taking a few steps, and that was it. Simply because ever so often the first symptom, the first sign of heart disease is fatal. And that makes this so critical in terms of the emergencies. In my experience, the one emergency I always told the folks who work with me that I find to be particularly time sensitive is a heart attack. And it's time sensitive for a couple of reasons. One, because in the first 30 to 90 minutes, and I'm not delving too much into this because we have an expert in the house and he'll take over from me, but in the first 30 to 90 minutes, timely intervention can determine the outcome. It means that that could determine whether that person lives or dies. The second part of it is, even when that person lives, even the quality of life in terms of what happens in those 30 minutes, what sort of intervention took place, will also determine the quality of life of that individual. Most people who have had a heart attack never return to the measure of health that they enjoyed before suffering a heart attack. So without any further ado, I'm going to allow the individuals on the screen to introduce themselves. Dr. Woodley is going to be spared that because she's well known. Her service throughout the length and breadth of the Federation is certainly well known. But I will open the floor to Dr. Ernest Madu and Mrs. Tommy Jordan to introduce themselves. So I'm sure that I cannot do sufficient justice to that. So we'll go with the ladies first. Tommy?
Hi there. My name is Tommy Jordan. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CPR Solutions. Got it. We were in St. Kitts a few weeks ago. We trained about 250 people in BLS, ACLS, and PALS. We were lucky enough to tour the hospitals on the island and kind of get a feel for what everybody is doing there and how things are going, and really enjoyed it.
And for those of you who may not know what this acronym is, BLS, there's a lot of that floating around tonight. So BLS is basic life support, and ACL is advanced cardiac life support. So those of you who have seen episodes of House or Grey's Anatomy or Chicago Fire, I think this is a very common situation where the first thing you'd see is what is referred to colloquially and in local parlance as pumping the chest of someone. But the quality CPR is what we were after, and we're so thankful that the Prime Minister here in St. Kitts did not hesitate, even 1 minute when that was asked of him, whether this was something that he would facilitate on the island, and certainly allowed for the training of some 200 and something healthcare workers. But the job has just started. I believe the impact of this, what this means, and what that signals as well to Dr. Woodley, who is here in the capacity of the president of the St. Kitts Nevis Medical and Dental Association. So we'll get to her shortly. But before we do so, let's speak to Ernest, my good friend Ernest as well, who is here in the lounge in somewhere in Miami in his travels, and has taken time from his very busy schedule to share some words with us. So Ernest, by all means, let's open the floor to you at this time.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. I'm somewhere at the airport in Miami, in between travels, so it might be a little bit choppy with the signal that I have, but nevertheless, I hope that we'll still be able to communicate. But my name is Ernest Madu. I'm the chairman of the Heart Institute of the Caribbean and HIC Heart Hospital. We run the most comprehensive premier center of cardiovascular excellence in the Caribbean.
Thank you, Ernest. And I had the opportunity, and the reason why Dr. Madu is here, with all the many things that I'm sure that is commanding his attention. I'm very happy that two things he's done so far. One was the invitation to Jamaica to the Masters of Medicine conference that I attended, and then had the privilege of touring his hospital and seeing just the amazing things that Jamaica had. I cannot tell you just how envious I felt, because both of my grandparents, I lost them to heart disease, but also as I age, I also think of my own fortunes as well, in terms of what were to happen if I were to, God forbid, suffer such an event here in Ireland, and how can I increase my own chances. So this is as much about me as it is about the work that I do as a medical doctor. But I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Woodley, who is right next to me. And Joy, we've worked together in terms of just the executive of the Medical and Dental Association, and we have had several starts and stops, and a lot of it owes to COVID, right? I mean, COVID really just took our agenda and sort of pretty much just took ownership of it. Everything we did was pretty much dictated by that. But certainly, your passion is well known for healthcare in the country. You continue to make strides in healthcare in the surgical realm, diabetic. Foot disease. And the reason why I think this is particularly important is because, this is somehow, so you say cardiovascular, everyone thinks of the heart, but cardio means the heart and vascular means the blood vessels. And it is the very same sort of disease of the blood vessels that ultimately leads to someone getting an amputation. And diabetes is rampant, not just in here in St. Kitts, but throughout the Caribbean. And as we open up our country, as people like myself and others come for this country, they don't leave their disease in the good healthcare system. They travel with it. And I know as doctors sometimes just how pained we feel when we cannot do everything that we'd like to do. And we've had many conversations, and I know that I feel for our conversations that you feel a little more hopeful right now, and I certainly feel that right now. You feel that the winds are in our sails, and there is an opportunity to really just transform healthcare in country. So you were one of the individuals who participated in the training as well, right? What did you think of it, and what do you think the impact of that is going to be or has already been?
Okay. Hi, good night everyone, and I'm no stranger to HealthWise, as I am one of the hosts of this same program.
Right.
So as Dr. Pierce said, now and again you may hear me call him Al, as Dr. Pierce said, this is actually, indeed epic, where we have the two hosts of the show on. tonight in one space. So it is a good thing. And thank you for inviting me, Dr. Pierre.
Absolutely.
I would never turn it down. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
As everyone would know by now, or for those of you who don't know, I'm Dr. Woodley. I'm the first female general surgeon in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I am also the president of the St. Kitts Nevis Medical and Dental Association. I've always worked on the executive for the association, so I'm no stranger to pushing, the health agenda, the good health agenda. I'm also the first person to have opened a foot clinic for the diabetic patients. And as Dr. Pierre rightly said, when we think about cardiovascular, we sometimes just think about the heart, not realizing or forgetting that there's a vascular part, which is, the blood vessels that go to the other parts of the body. Once the blood vessels are damaged, say for example to your feet, bet your life, the blood vessels are also damaged to the heart. And then this can lead to different diseases. This can lead to you just walking down the road and dropping. Hence, the reason why the courses that we did the past 2-3 weeks were of paramount importance. As the president of the association, I get many doctors coming and asking for continued medical exposure, continued medical education. We were so happy when we brought this idea, Dr. Pierre and myself, we spoke about it at length, went back and forth, how can we get it done? And the bubble went off in our head, but our Minister of Health is Dr. Drew.
Right.
What are you talking about?
Right.
Our Minister of Health is Dr. Drew. So we rang him up, he answered, and we told him exactly what we were planning, the need for it. And he's no stranger to our health system in the Federation.
Certainly.
He knows the deficit, the deficiencies.
Right.
And he gladly accepted. And what he told us, Dr. Pierre? Just get it done.
Just get it done. Just get it done.
He said, just get it done.
Yeah.
And indeed, we put our teams together along with the Ministry of Health, along with other colleagues, along with the director of the Hospital of JNF, along with the matron and other members. We put our team together and we were able to train over 200 persons in basic life support, advanced life support, and that support as well for the pediatric or children population. It was a beautiful experience, Dr. Pierre. And the feedback from the doctors was, it was something long overdue. It gave them the confidence to know that if somebody comes to the A&E department, or even if they meet anyone, anywhere, at a football game, at a wedding, and somebody happens to need that type of help, the confidence that they got from the training would push them into the situation and make them successful at saving that person's life. So the training for me, and as we get more into the discussion, I'm going to explain some more. But the training for me personally was beautiful because we interacted with persons from different health systems. Sometimes it's always good to have another exposure. It's always good to know what's happening out there. And the trainers, they were so down to earth. Earthy people, human beings. Because sometimes as health professionals, we take away that human aspect.
Absolutely.
From, giving health care. And the trainers, they were great. They were patient with us. They ensured that we understood exactly what we were supposed to do. It then became almost second nature. At the end of the course, certain things were second nature. Somebody's walking down the road and they drop, what do you do? Go down, look for a pulse. So it became automatic. And we really want to say thank you to the team, especially organized by Ross, Miss Tommy.
Tommy John.
Tommy John, we want to say a big thank you also to Dr. Madhu, who was there coaching us. And this is what we need in the health system. Persons who have the expertise, willing to share, and coaching us as well. So, Dr. Pierre, it was great. I need Dr. Drew to do it again, and he has promised us pretty soon. We're going to have another session of this because it has to be continuous.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joy. I think you said it all. I remember the call to CPR, and I'll get to Ernest in a bit, who will really help us to break this down for us, to help us understand what that means from the standpoint of what have we achieved here. Just with this training, in terms of improving outcomes, in terms of at least in cardiovascular emergencies, what that means, what that training means, and why this is important. I'm sure everyone at his Heart Institute in Jamaica, all of his staff are adequately qualified and certified in that area of training. But Tommy, we hadn't met before in person, and it'll be hard to tell if someone saw us at Spratnet or all the places we toured while you were here on St. Kitts. But what were some of the things or the concerns that you would have had when I said to you, I need you over on this country in the Caribbean that you'd never been to before? There's a good chance that perhaps you had not even heard of St. Kitts before, but you decided to come out here, and then I want you to just talk to us a bit on the experience coming in and what the experience was in terms of providing this training and delivering it with a very short time to set things up. Really, I gave you, I think, all of 10 days to pack everything and get your trainers and move about 15 pieces of luggage here to St. Kitts to train some individuals. And I'm not sure what your experience has been. I know you have some 17 years in the industry, but certainly I would like to perhaps hear from you in terms of what the experience here was in St. Kitts, and what do you think this means from the standpoint of CPR certification?
Sure. Was it a 10 days? I didn't believe that it was real first. I've been approached from other companies that say, hey, we want training. So I didn't really believe that it was real. And then whenever I did decide that it was real, the importance of what we was definitely impressed upon me. I got excited because it's my life's mission to make sure that we can save as many people as possible and train many people confident enough in their skills to actually, and there is an emergency. Between trying to make sure that we got all of the equipment, making sure we had the supplies, making sure that we understood our travel requirements. And please do not think that I was the one who set this up. Is CPR Solutions Administrator, and she devised a plan to make sure that all it was from Surprise, Arizona, to Miami, to Saint. She helped with scheduling the ACLS and PALS, sure that everybody had their passport, making sure that they were able. That was one of our big challenges initially, getting the best instructors that would to the island. Either didn't have time off from their jobs, or they didn't have a passport, or their passport was expired. But luckily we were able to bring 3 or 4, if you include myself, of the absolute best trainers that the American Heart Association has. It was quite a journey to get from Phoenix, Arizona to Miami. We had some long layovers, but if you're going to be stuck anywhere, I guess Miami is the place to do it. We then got to St. after the same afternoon that we began traveling. We were graciously hosted by Pierre, and who took us to Ross and showed us the classrooms that we were going to be, how much room we had, which everything was more than enough. Of the training, the first, we had the press conference, Dr. Drew, Dr. Madhu, Dr. Stapleton Harris, and the medical officer, and of course, Dr. Pierre. And then once we talked about that, I got so excited. I could not wait to begin training. And I have to tell the class that I taught personally, I don't know that I could have had a better experience. Though the learners were so engaged, they were so enthusiastic. they wanted this knowledge on a very deep level. And that was the feedback that I got from their trained well. Just absolutely wonderful, wonderful students through all the classes, all through the ACLS, the PALS, the Heart Saver for the security guards at Ross, and then also the BLS classes that I personally got. Absolutely wonderful. I was actually very sad to stop teaching after the 6 classes. I was ready to go some more.
Thank you, Tommy. And I just want to just pitch to Dr. Madhu, who's on the call right now, and I know that he eats statistics, you know, and that's his thing. I mean, you know, Dr. Madhu, you know, there may not be sufficient time in the show to tell you all this man has done, not only in terms of his career, but also how much of a maverick he is. The things he's changed to ensure that you know, that black individuals, black and brown people everywhere have access to that type of training, but I mean cardiology. And then everything that he's done in his life could have been anywhere in the world, including the United States where he trained, but chose to be in Jamaica. And that for me was one of the things that was, you know, I remember meeting him and we had spoken over the phone before, but then I kept asking myself, why the Caribbean? Why, you know, of course I met his wife, Dania, who is Jamaican, and I found that compelling enough. But certainly as you delve into, you know, people move for love, but you realize that the true love is actually medicine, especially cardiovascular medicine, and he has made so many strides in that area in Jamaica, and I think he can do a much better job at taking that than I do. But Dr. Madhu, while I have you on the phone, I just want to find out, and this may seem to many like a small bit in terms of just the CPR training, but what does that mean for cardiovascular outcome? What does that mean for the physician who is now confronted with a cardiovascular emergency, of which there are many in this country and throughout the world? I think it's every 40-something seconds a person dies from a heart attack around the world. You know, the fact that someone now has a certification from the most authoritative body on cardiovascular health is the American Heart Association. What does that mean in terms of impact and shaping outcomes in cardiovascular emergencies?
Thank you, Dr. Pierre, and nice to see you again, Dr. Woodley and Tommy. It's a pleasure to be here. So it's a very important question. What does this mean in terms of diagnosis and treatment of cardiovascular diseases? It's very critical that those who are going to take care of patients with cardiovascular diseases are fully equipped with the knowledge and have the confidence to be able to intervene appropriately, especially in cases of cardiovascular emergencies. Why is this important? Because when there is a cardiovascular emergency, death or major disability, it's a very real concern. So it's a very encouraging step for St. Kitts to make this effort to train 200 plus individuals in CPR and advanced cardiac life support. I must say that I was quite impressed with the level of enthusiasm.
I think we've lost Ernest here for a bit. You know, while we try to get him back on the phone, I'm sure you just want to talk about the level of enthusiasm which he continues to mention in terms of just how eager individuals are to see that change in healthcare, and how eager people are to actually use those skills they received, right, Joy?
What was even more amazing to me, it just didn't stay at the level of the doctors.
Right.
You saw that same enthusiasm throughout the nurses.
Yes.
The persons who work on the ambulance, they were so happy when they heard that this training was coming to them. And what I loved about it, it was all inclusive. It was everybody. We needed to touch everybody. And what even touched me further is when Dr. Joe said, we have to go to our auxiliary staff.
Yes.
And give them some basic training, the person who cleans, the person who cooks, Because guess what? Nobody is immune to this, to these diseases.
Right.
You don't know who may help you. And if you can give somebody that basic or that minimum training to keep that person alive until specialized help, then you would have done a marvelous job. So this training, I think what it did, it ignited a spark in many of us that was there, but I think we lost it over the past few years. But this was refreshing.
Absolutely.
A breath, you know, it was just nice to breathe. It was like giving back oxygen, no pun intended. Giving back oxygen, you know, to our profession, to our craft. This is what we love. And when I see, you know, that information was disseminated throughout and persons ran for it, I was impressed. And as I said, Tommy A. Jordan and Dr. Madhu, I don't know how else to thank them. And I don't think the Federation, I don't think they understood what we did those past 2 to 3 weeks, what was accomplished. The level of healthcare went up a few notches.
Right, certainly.
The delivery of healthcare went up. I went to the A&E department and the doctors, you know, they're reciting. Okay, remember if this happened, this is what we do. So you saw that they took the information, they assimilated the information, and they now know how to use the information. So I'm feeling so much comfortable now because, you know, as doctors, we normally say, I'm trying to get the place up to scratch just in case.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, just in case I get up there.
Or your loved
because or my loved one gets there. Because I want to know once I am there or anybody for me, my family, or even friends, or on a whole, the population, people from the population gets there, that we can deliver quality health care and deliver it in such a manner that the quality of life after is still good.
It's still good.
Because you just don't want to drag to somebody and then afterwards they can't walk, they can't talk, they cannot do anything. But it's to get out successfully from if you may have had a heart attack, if you may have had a stroke, if you just stop breathing, we want to bring you back, but then give you a quality of life that is acceptable. And that is why we have Dr. Madhu here especially, because he's from the Heart Institute, and as we normally say, okay, we save you, we bring you back from a heart attack, what is next?
What is next? What is next? What is next? And I'm not sure whether we have Dr. Madhu back yet. He's not back yet with us. Is Tommy with us? Because I wanted to find out from Tommy. And Tommy, I'm sure you heard Dr. Woodley speak to how, you know, the enthusiasm you've left and the spark that you've ignited with that training. And I will add, you know, some may not know, but Social Security, who is an important player, an important stakeholder in all of this, would not be left behind. So they also requested training and had some 31 of their staff trained in basic life support and first aid just this past week, right? And certified by the American Heart Association. So organizations are now seeing the importance of that. And I'm so proud, I'm so privileged to work for an organization in Ross University, whose parent companies is Adtalem, who came on board without any hesitation in providing their space. And a lot of times people see and think that Ross has a giant campus and we have space lying around. No, whenever Ross lends its space, it's because we have moved things in a way to actually try to create a clear to allow for those things, and it was done thanks to, you know, the team of Desiree McCoy, my dean Sean Callanan, and Regine Jenkins at Ross, who without any hesitation just said, yes, let us make this happen, and let's see how we can do it. And why that's important for us is because of Ross's One Health approach, where we felt that, you know, the world of veterinary medicine and human medicine does not have to be disconnected. We live on one planet. Too many diseases like COVID and others have taught us that we're one disease, one virus removed from both you know, sort of human organisms being affected, right? So I want to say thanks to Ross for providing that. But Tommy, you know, we spoke of CPR, and we spoke of it in very broad strokes. And individuals think that, you know, you just get on someone's chest and you begin to pump it, and hopefully the heart will start beating again. I think a lot of those myths that a lot of the layperson or even individuals within the healthcare sector thought CPR was, I think that has been debunked by you know, by a large measure. I wanted to find out from you, Tommy, of all the things that you could have done, why CPR, and why does that skill set matter from the standpoint of the American Heart Association, and in terms of the training that you've conducted, I know that, you know, there are many different levels of certification, but I want to understand from you, first of all, how you got into the space, a bit of your background, and also in terms of what does that actually mean in the steps that we go through. Why are those steps important in terms of ensuring that we have an improved outcome?
I started teaching CPR. I was actually a professor at a college, and I was voluntold that I had to teach CPR. And actually, I was not enthusiastic about it. In fact, I had a very bad attitude about it. It was just one more thing on my plate that I didn't have time for. And at that point, being 17 years younger than I am now, it wasn't relevant. And as I started teaching and getting feedback on the classes that I was teaching, I was understanding how important what I was teaching was to people. Every class, somebody in the class told me a story about a loved one, a friend, somebody that they know whose life was touched by heart disease or stroke. And once I really understood how pervasive heart disease and stroke in not just in America, but worldwide. And as I matured, I started to understand absolutely how important CPR is to the, not just to healthcare workers, because the majority of cardiac arrest happens at home. So we're not just training doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists. We are training, you know, the people at the Social Security Administration. We're training security guards. We're training the dishwashers, the janitors. We're training as many people as we can, because the more people feel confident in those CPR skills, the more likely a cardiac arrest victim is to receive immediate CPR, thusly increasing their chances of survival significantly. That's how I got started with it. And I was initially trained by an agency different from the American Heart Association, and I didn't feel secure in what they were teaching. Their methodologies didn't really didn't jive with how I felt the classes should have. So I reached out to a local hospital and asked to become trained as an American Heart Association instructor. And the instructor that I had at that time, his passion and his fire for what we were doing, it was contagious. And from there, I was hooked. I started training as many people as I really could. I traveled to train the outreach. We have so many rural areas where EMS response time can be as long as 20 to 30 minutes. With no bite or CPR in that time frame, a victim's chance of survival is almost nil. So we really focused on people who live in the outskirts, who live far away from EMS, who may not even have phone service. Call EMS. And we really focused on training them and making them feel confident that if a cardiac emergency happened, that they would respond. And started getting feedback, and the numbers from that, it just fueled the fire, you know, and it just was able to train instructors who share the same passion and the same outlook on cardiac arrest and survival that I. And once we found instructors who were willing to teach it, we just grew exponentially, not just nationwide, but also international, to get these people trained. The experience on St. Kitts as far as training PALS, CLS, the instructors that we brought to the island really have a passion. They absolutely cared to make sure that everybody understood exactly what was being taught. And as Dr. Joy will attest, it was just repeated. And by the time the class was done, everyone was enthusiastic and could almost recite verbatim what they're supposed to do. They helped each other, worked as a team, they encouraged each other. And I think that we definitely did some very, very special on St. Kitts. I know when I was there as a tourist, I told a few people, you know, why I was on St. Kitts. And just about every person that I interacted with said, I want that training. How do I get into a class? And I just, you know, I just smiled and I said, I believe, and hear about it. And you may have the opportunity to get training as well. And just that level of enthusiasm from lay people who want this training, who understand how important it actually, that was just something very special. And I'm just absolutely honored to be a part of it.
Quite nicely, and I think what some of the salient points to me are just the times, again, yourself reinforced on the time sensitivity, but more so the fact that, you know, health professionals may not be immediately available, and that is something that, you know, that as small as our country is, you know, we don't have ambulances to be stationed in every single district, and even then, even the time just for transfer. So someone getting on top of that chest, you know, if I were to just be very real about the way it's done, in a timely manner is so important into determining what that outcome is like. We'll take a break from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. And on the next side of the break, I want to get Dr. Madhu back on screen because Dr. Joy left us with a very important question, which is, so we've resuscitated you, we have your back. What is the next step? What do we do? What should we be doing? And I think that would really help inform our next steps as a country in terms of what we need to be looking at. So on the next side of the break, we'll be right back. Thank you so much. Stay with us.
Experience the Qatar World Cup with Carlos Montero, and through our social networks, become a protagonist of this exciting experience. From the field,
Okay, class. If you follow this algebraic expression, you must get it though. What kind of unruly class this year? What is? What's going on here? Hello? Look, young lady, the choice is always yours. Okay?
experience the Qatar World Cup with Carlos Montero, and through our social networks, become a protagonist of this exciting experience. From the field,
Okay, class. If you follow this algebraic expression, you must get it though. What kind of unruly class this here? What is? What's going on here? Hello. Look, young lady. The choice is always yours. Okay?
Okay, great. We can see it. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you.
And maybe you can see what I cannot see you. I hope the cameras enjoy, who has a much better look. We are now, correct? Thank you. Welcome back. We're discussing the very important topic of heart disease and more specifically heart attacks on the back of a massive training that this country had thanks to the work of some very passionate individuals like my president. I'm the vice president. My president of the SKMDA. No. My president of the SKMDA and all the other individuals who were very supportive, and also to our prime minister, who also made this possible. But you know what was very interesting, Joy, and it's almost as if there is something that is, and you asked such an important question before we went on the break, and you're asking, what happens next. But wasn't it, and when I saw it initially, I actually thought it was a joke, I have to say. The image of Dr. Drew on that aircraft, only 5 days after we had done this training here on the island, that he now was no longer Dr. Drew, but as PM Drew, but Dr. Drew in the truest sense, again with a stethoscope around, which was so nice to see the Prime Minister himself now having to use those very skills that we just spoke about on an airplane. Back on his trip from Taiwan, and I think that speaks to the value, speaks to the heart of why this is so important, Joy. But we all receive training all the time. We receive certifications all the time, right? I mean, how many have we done? But they become just pieces of paper. They become just information that we just put in the back burner, and I imagine that, our A&E officers, perhaps the other ones who are more likely to actually put these skills to use every single day. But what do we need? Because we have a momentum right now. We have a shift, I think, in people's consciousness and awareness. What do we need to be doing now within our body? And how do we then create this private public sector partnerships, like with the Heart Institute, for example, to ensure that, what that bucket we continue to drop, it's not just a few drops in the bucket, but eventually we create a system in which we improve outcomes for the number one killer, Ernest? Is it the number one killer in the world today, which is heart disease, or am I which followed by cancer? Well, cancer in this country, I think, is number one, and heart disease is number two. But I think around the world, it is number one. The number one killer, and it is no respecter of age. As I said, a 41-year-old Haitian artist died on stage. Right, we have individuals who have died in the 20s from an MI, from a myocardial infarction. So, talk to me, President. What is on the agenda for our organization?
Okay, for us, we have started out on the right foot, which is identify that there's a problem. And we identify that after our doctors leave medical school or their training, that there wasn't a follow-up. And it is so important because as I was speaking to a patient of mine today, things change on a weekly, sometimes a daily basis. So we have to stay current. So it is, what is the word? It is irresponsible for any administration not to put that type of, energy and resource into its people when it comes to training. So I must say we have started out on the right foot. We have identified one of the problems. We have ran with it. We took it to our Minister of Health, Dr. Joe, and he welcomed it with open arms, and we have started. And as you said, we have gained momentum. We have gained the interest of not only our medical professionals, but as you said, the private institution, the private entities as well. Because as you know, we are all human beings. As we know, you don't have to drop in the hospital. As you know, you don't have to have a heart attack in a space where you have persons that are trained. You can have a heart attack anywhere. So training persons throughout the island and piquing that interest in people, I must say, we have done that. So just doing that alone, I think, we have ticked the first box, which is piquing the interest of people. Once we have that interest, not only in the health system, but in the private system, I think we would move forward with this. Now, in terms of our association, what we want to do is to continue pushing it. We don't want to start training now and stop. That is why when I spoke to Dr. Madu, I was so happy when he said he is willing to give us training, PRN, as we need it. And as he said, he has been knocking before. And we were not receptive. So now we have the fertile ground, which is this change, this paradigm shift in terms of administration, in terms of, taking healthcare to a different level. We really welcome the efforts and the passion of persons like Dr. Madu and Tommy Jordan. So this is what we have to do. One, we realized our deficit. Two, we have accepted the help in the form of these people. Because we could have said, no, we are good. Yeah, we can just, continue limping along. But we realized in 2022, we cannot continue like that. And I must also thank the public too, because the public has been pushing. We need to step up our game. And this is what we are actually doing. So we have identified the deficit. We have accepted the help. Our doctors are interested. They are thirsty. They are thirsty for this type of education. It was amazing to see the faces. At one point in time, I got tired. I mean, I guess I'm getting old now. But the younger doctors were there pumping on the chest, and I'm thinking, okay, aren't you guys tired?
Right.
And what we have to underscore, we did not just train our doctors in St. Kitts. We brought our Vision colleagues over.
Absolutely.
So we spread the blanket, because many times we go to Nevis for all kind of culture, all kind of fetes. And we could drop down over there too.
That's right.
You understand?
That is correct.
But it even goes beyond that. That shows how inclusive that, this administration, Dr. Joe, he is in terms of spreading the education, spreading the training, because we need it. So I think we are on the right path. We have gotten the training. We have received the promises from our trainers that they will come back just to give us refresher course, and for those who may have missed. Also, what is important, they have spoken about training some of us to become instructors. Like Dr. Pierre, you are. You are an instructor as well. So it is what we call this ripple effect. We just don't want to leave the training in just the hands of one set of persons. Because God forbid, if they cannot come, what happens? So the next step would be train some of us here on island who we are very capable. We have great minds. We are brilliant people.
Absolutely.
I am brilliant. I'm from Sandy Point. I had to get that in there.
SP were the best B.
So we are brilliant people. We can be trained. So once you have instructors now, I mean, look how great it is. It's like one hand holds another, and we're pulling each other forward. So I think we are making great strides. We are moving in the right direction. I don't want, that spark to get wet and, be put on the back burner.
Certainly not.
I want it to continue burning. Our doctors, they're asking, what next?
Yeah.
What are we going to do next? So that is where Dr. Madhu comes in, especially with the Heart Institute, where we can get, follow-up. After I have saved you, where should I put you? What is the follow-up key?
Absolutely.
That is the key, the follow-up key. So that is where we are as an association. How can we get that follow-up key on island?
Absolutely. And as I stated earlier, I have a co-host in the house, so she's opened up the floor for the next part of the next segment of this, which is, where do we go next? And, Dr. Madhu, if I still have you on screen, I would like you to walk us through what would happen if in Jamaica today if someone had an MI, was resuscitated, and then what is the next step, and what should we as a country and as a healthcare system be looking towards? And I recognize that we are small, but in St. Kitts there's a phrase that says, and you're in Jamaica long enough to perhaps identify it, we little but we talawa, meaning that we are small but we can do great things. So what should be our next step if we are to successfully create some improvement in our outcomes in cardiovascular disease management?
Excellent question, and I think Joy had set it up very nicely. St. Kitts and Nevis is small, but not too small. It's also a country that is capable of doing great things. And these great things can be done in healthcare, especially now that individuals are very excited and motivated to drive the process forward. When somebody has a heart attack and is resuscitated, the next thing to do is to keep the person alive, because there is a primary reason where the heart attack occurred. There is an underlying pathology that led to the cardiac arrest or the heart attack. So let's just be happy that we've gotten to the stage where people realize that it is very important to begin to make these investments in training and investing in the local capacity. Every country needs local capacity to be able to protect the citizens. Health security is very important. As you mentioned earlier, cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death and disability in almost all countries and territories reported. If you look at the data for St. Kitts and Nevis, you'll see that cancer is #1 and heart disease is #2. But actually, when you look at cardiovascular diseases, the pattern shifts because you have to include diabetes and hypertension and other vascular ailments. Now, when somebody has suffered a cardiac arrest or heart attack requiring resuscitation, that individual will need immediate intervention to keep them alive. That will be taking them to the cath lab and doing primary percutaneous coronary revascularization. We talk in cardiovascular care, we talk about primary and secondary prevention. If we do very good job with primary prevention, we wouldn't need a lot of secondary intervention. But people with genetic inclinations, if you have genetic predisposition, even the best primary intervention efforts will not be successful. In the immediate, I think we need to establish a streamlined process to moving patients along for immediate attention. And that's where the Heart Institute of the Caribbean comes in. And then in the second phase, we need to be thinking about developing the infrastructure and the capacity for a more comprehensive care of patients with cardiovascular disease in St. Kitts and Nevis.
We discussed that at length, right? I mean, when I was in Jamaica, that's one of the things that we spoke about, just the healthcare workforce imbalance that exists. We have to be cognizant of the fact that as a small country, it will be very hard for us to attract sufficient world-class specialists in every discipline, right? Cardiology, if you look at it, is a subspecialty of internal medicine, but there are so many others. So you have Ernest as a cardio, as a nuclear cardiologist, right? Amongst other things that he's proficient in. So the question is, how do we then, as a region, bring our resources together? How do we leverage other things like telemedicine, for example? And this is an area that I do telemedicine consultations with Ernest already. There are patients who I see, and I need to get an idea of what's going on, what the next step should be, and I reach out to him. So telemedicine has made those things possible. It was some version of telemedicine that actually allowed me to get the folks at the Social Security trained, because Kara from CPR Solutions was in Arizona, and the staff were in the conference room. So we have technology, and COVID has taught us that those things have always been there. We just haven't leveraged them nearly as much as we should. So we don't need to have all of those resources concentrated in one location anymore, for us to actually make use of them. And this is why, I welcome the support of the Heart Institute in Ernest, and I see his wife, who is right somewhere behind him as well. They're both very qualified, highly trained individuals who are willing to interconsult with our doctors here to provide that level of care. But as they say, sadly, it takes cash to care. And we've spoken about healthcare financing ad nauseum, because the reality is that, unfortunately, we are already at the point in the Caribbean where it's becoming, if not difficult, but certainly it's becoming challenging to provide the level of care for our citizens, because those social determinants of health, the people who are getting very sick with cardiovascular disease, are the ones least able to pay. And I think that the challenge has been to make that connection between why it makes sense for us to have a healthy population. I remember speaking to Dr. Tufton, or Chris Tufton, who is the Minister of Health in Jamaica, and he said, and his term was, it is an economic and developmental challenge for us. We cannot build our country. We cannot develop a country on the backs of individuals who are dying and getting sick so early. So healthcare financing, and that's the area. Ernest, you've written extensively about this. You have a fantastic model in the way in which the Caribbean should come together, and we should be looking as nations in the way in which we are able to pay for those services, because they are in fact costly. And again, while we try to save the next generation with prevention, with preventive care, with improving our primary health care, we have to provide care and support for those who are already sick and those who need that sort of thing to prevent any complications. So I'm not sure. I mean, I know that you have some great model at the Heart Institute, and maybe you can just walk us through some of the things that work into those who are saying, yeah, but a bypass grafting will set you back $100,000, and I'm quoting Miami Baptist Health prices here for you, by the way, not Heart Institute prices. I think we have him frozen again. A good pick of him, though, by the way. So Tommy, I got an email from you 2 days ago. I have to say that excited me. It excited me so much. I was wondering whether there's a way I could go ahead and get it going while that information. And one of the areas that Tommy sent, and we spoken about what would be a next set of training, what it would look like. And she has become so enthusiastic about the whole training that she spoke about us conducting drills. And I don't know that the CPR Solutions team needs to be here for that, Joy. I think that's something that they can start, but I certainly think that it's going to, how we respond to our codes, how we actually, people understand what the code, in fact, how do we actually notify to know that there's actually a code. I don't know that the system that we use right now is efficient enough to say that someone in X unit has crashed. We have that system that is, you hear it in all hospitals around the world when somebody says a code blue, and you hear it come across the PA system. Sometimes they call a specific individual to respond to that code. Tommy, I wanted you to walk me through that part of the email, and then perhaps Joy can then chime in from the standpoint of the Medical and Dental Association what we can do to support that.
Well, as important as training is, making sure that we're able to put into practice what we learned in class is just as important as the training. Make sure that in real time, in their real environment, they're able to respond to a medical emergency. Because as we know, being in a classroom setting, it's kind of relaxed. We're joking around. We're, interacting with each other. But whenever a true emergency happens, you get that burst of adrenaline going and everything just kind of stops for a second and then everything speeds 100 times faster. Sure that people know what their role is in a code situation, that they know where the card, how to use the medications that are on it, how to work as a team, and how to, once the patient is stable, what do they do? Do they just walk away and leave the patient, or do they provide aftercare, which is the final link in the American Heart Association's chain of survival, is that aftercare and making sure patients stable and taken care of. Because as we know, one cardiac event oftentimes followed by another cardiac event. So we want to make sure that people that we trained in class are able to put into practice what they learned and make it a little more intense, a little bit more stressful than what the actual learning environment is. Then we can brief and identify, okay, this is what we do. This is probably how we can do it better. Can measure, and as the American Heart Association says, you cannot improve what you do not measure. So mock codes or cardiac code drills are absolutely essential in making sure that the healthcare providers can remember and respond to a cardiac emergency. So, and I'm glad to hear that excited you. I think that's very important.
I know that we've spoken about more training, as you said, Joy, that the Prime Minister spoke about, every house, cook, chef, and bottle washer at the hospital is able to get on and provide. And when you have resource constraints in terms of numbers, you really want to get everyone, because the first person who witnesses a heart attack within a hospital setting should be able to start to provide some measure of care. But to Thomas' point is that, for me, those are critical elements that ensures that we continue, because we need to create real life situations around that training, right? We need to ensure that people, yes, went in the classroom where it's nice and you're on a dummy and you're doing this and so on, but running up those stairs and having a patient, because having a patient at the time and deciding who goes where and who does what, I think is also important. So I think as the association, this is really something that we can.
Have a lot of work
yeah.
to do. First of all, we have to get things protocolized. Mm-hmm. We have to get things written down on papers. And I must say, I've had some doctors, after the training, they came to me and they said, Dr. Woodley, we need to get things down on paper.
Right.
In fact, some of them, especially those from Nevis, they went online and they started looking up all the protocols from Amazon, where we can get them printed and stuck in our emergency room and in other places that persons can easily have access to them and read them, even while sitting, waiting to be seen by a doctor, or just waiting. You can actually read these things on a wall. So first of all, we have to get things down on paper so that everyone is on the same page, no pun intended. So that is very important. And as an association, I can see us filling that gap. And I've already spoken to some doctors who really love all of this. Right. And we have decided that, okay, we're going to put some things down on paper. Of course, it has to come from accredited source, accredited institution, so that these are things we have to follow through on. I agree with Tommy that we need drills. Yeah. So the classroom is the ideal setting. Right. And we will never get the ideal setting in the real world. I can recall one Christmas, it was last lap. And I was looking at the last lap, and our assistant matron now, Sister Keynes, I happened to look out of the window and I saw her on all fours in the road pumping somebody's chest. So I just ran downstairs because I was upstairs in my husband's office. So now the road, it's asphalt. Wow. Nothing there padded to pad your knees. The person was basically almost in the drain. So no type of, hygiene, nothing clean.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had to get down on all fours while I am giving my chest compressions. She was making sure there was a pulse. Luckily, the ambulance was able to come, but we couldn't move the person as yet because the person wasn't stable.
Wow.
So we had to be doing our CPR sessions in the road with Smollett's band at the loudest.
Wow.
People in their costumes, glitter dust, and we were on all fours in all of that. So that is why the drills are important, because the drills give us the almost real life situation. So I do echo that sentiment. We need to get the drills going. We need to get things protocolized. We need to have things there that everybody knows. This is my role. And in doing these drills, we have to identify the leaders who will do what so that we don't cross each other. So as an association, I know our doctors, they would come together. We have come together before to do many things. And we need to get these protocols down. We need to get the drills going. And I think once we continue, we would not lose that momentum. We would not lose that passion. And we would see this come to fruition. We would see it, and we will be able to apply it when needs be and apply it successfully.
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw the phone numbers flash below the screen earlier on. I just want to remind you that the lines are now open if you wanted to call to ask questions. This is such an interesting conversation. I could go on for a couple of days, but I want to be sure that the listening audience has the opportunity to ask some questions to individuals who they may not necessarily get the opportunity with to be in this situation again. Before we lost Dr. Madhu, I was about to ask the question in terms of, well, one again, what are some of the things that the numbers are on the screen. I'm just going to call them out quickly. So the numbers are 869-466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and if you're calling from overseas, it's 123-9645. 4,500. So I was asking Dr. Madhu, what are some of the things after an MI, after heart attack, and Tommy spoke to you a little bit, but I think we should allow the cardiologist himself to tell us, what are some of the things, what are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that has to happen after someone has suffered an MI, and that person has been resuscitated, they're now in our ICU. What should we be doing, and what sort of tests, equipment that needs to come into play to ensure that individual, should they have, well, one, that we avoid another event, certainly, and of course that person has the best outcome, not only in terms of mortality, but also morbidity, meaning that person doesn't just survive, but then the quality of life is not significantly impacted. Do we still have Dr. Madhu on the screen? No, I think we've lost him again.
Yes,
yeah.
It seems.
Yeah. So Joy, I mean, and I can answer all those questions, right? I mean, today the dorsal needle time, the time when someone suffers an MI to the time when they should get thrombolytics, which is something that breaks up that clot that has gone into large vessels, the coronaries in the heart, and has clogged it and prevented that supply to the heart muscle itself. I have Ernest back, so okay. I'm going to allow him to take over from. I was at thrombolytics, Ernest, so you can take over from here. This is certainly your field, and I'm sure you know this much better than I do.
Okay, thank you. Very good question. So, cardiovascular disease is, again, cannot be. The significance of it in terms of death and disability cannot be overstated. Resuscitation is a good, necessary first step in acute events. But I want to emphasize that most patients with cardiovascular disease do not end up with such dramatic events. Even the patients that we have that have cardiac arrest and we have to resuscitate, oftentimes these patients may have had symptoms which were not properly attended to. Then we also have patients with myocardial infarction or heart attacks. Oftentimes, when they have the dramatic event that need resuscitation, it may not have been the first time they were having chest pain. And so when you have internal capacity and infrastructure in a place, many of these individuals could have been identified and obviate the need for this dramatic event that will lead to cardiac resuscitation. Now, in those where cardiac resuscitation is done, where two likely causes for cardiovascular disease will be cardiac arrest that may be electrical in nature, or myocardial infarction, which is heart attack. In any of those instances, once the resuscitation is done, they need to be quickly transferred to a facility with the appropriate infrastructure, necessary training, well staffed, and well resourced. Otherwise, the benefit of the resuscitation will be lost. And this has to be done quickly. American Heart Association has a concept that they have popularized that we pay attention to, which is door-to-balloon time for patients with heart attack. We like to keep that door-to-balloon time to be within 90 minutes. That is the time where you get the best results. At the Heart Institute of the Caribbean in Jamaica, we have published our door-to-balloon time, and it's about 65 minutes or less. Many institutions in the United States aim to have door-to-balloon time that is less than 2 hours. That is the time from when the patient hits your facility and when you open up the blockage. And that is what is shown to improve outcomes. Now, if you cannot do that with percutaneous catheter intervention or coronary intervention with catheters, then you should be able to do that routinely with thrombolytic therapy. And there is no reason why that is not, going to be standard of care. What I will recommend, in my experience developing health systems in multiple regions, I think good intentions are never enough in making a difference. I think with this excitement that we have seen in St. Kitts among the providers and patients and administrators, I think it will be necessary to begin to set some timelines and have some targets of what we can achieve together. For example, as I have said, that many patients that end up with a dramatic cardiac arrest episode or heart attack on the street, many of them have had some symptoms that have not been attended to. If it's electrical in nature, some of these would have been picked up with a simple diagnostic test, 24-hour Holter monitoring. We can set a timeline and say, within this time frame, and this can be as quickly as within the next 2 weeks, we can make 24-hour Holter monitors routinely available for people in St. Kitts and Nevis. We can also make telecardiology consultations. As Dr. Pierre has talked about telemedicine, we should be able to consult with patients on a daily basis. Any person that has a cardiovascular complaint, we have cardiologists at the Heart Institute of the Caribbean that can consult via telemedicine, and we can identify many of these cases and obviate the need for having cardiac arrest or myocardial infarction because we haven't attended to them. Echocardiogram is another tool that should be routinely available. It's not enough to have one echocardiogram machine in an island. I think, patients in St. Kitts and Nevis deserve to have access to these diagnostic techniques routinely. It's also more cost effective because if you can do it in St. Kitts and Nevis, all it takes is for one person to have a myocardial infarction that cannot be attended to, and then you have a lot of expenses coming to that. And if you don't respond quickly enough, there is going to be a loss of myocardial function, ongoing disability, heart failure developing down the road. And so it is very important to put measures in place to make sure that most citizens have access to adequate care. So just in conclusion, I will say it's good to have a timeline, to get some basic things done. Telecardiology consultations can begin immediately. 24-hour Holter monitors can be deployed across the island almost immediately. And then we can begin training of individuals from St. Kitts to be able to provide some cardiovascular technical services with support from the Heart Institute. Ultimately, a center of excellence for cardiovascular care in St. Kitts and Nevis will be a profound advantage to St. Kitts because it will be a center of excellence that covers the Eastern Caribbean. And so it's such a fantastic opportunity for St. Kitts and Nevis, especially because it seems to be an idea whose time has come, because people are excited, people are willing, people are motivated, and the capacity is there. The people are, able to learn. Just like the ACLS, you have trainers, that can train other people. The same way as you develop cardiovascular services, that we have services that can be there when people need it, because anyone is a potential victim.
Absolutely.
Dr. Pierre, I hope the policymakers are
Right.
listening,
Yes.
and I know budget is coming up soon.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Dr. Madhu, he has given us quite a lot to think
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Some of the solutions aren't that, far-fetched.
Right.
As he said, like things as early as the telemedicine, we can employ that already.
Right.
Or we should have had that
Yeah.
going already. And what this has taught many of our doctors, we do not have to operate alone. And too often we come back home and we are in our little vacuum, like, little asylums.
Yeah.
And this is not how medicine is being practiced worldwide. We studied in Cuba, we practice in groups.
Yeah.
So this has also opened, the minds. This has changed the shift, or has caused a shift in thinking of many of our doctors, that if I don't know something, it is okay. Reach out for help.
Right.
Call. And what I found interesting with our training is that all the trainers, the instructors, they left their numbers. And one of them said to me, no matter what time is it, if you have a problem, just call me and I'll answer. And that in itself gives you a sense of relief.
Absolutely.
It allows you to practice medicine now freely, knowing that you have a shoulder there to lean on just in case you get yourself in trouble. So here we have Dr. Madhu giving us all of this range of expertise that his institute and other like minds like him can give to our country. And I think we should not let that go wasted. I don't think Dr. Drew would let it go wasted.
Absolutely not.
I hope he's listening to this. And we can squeeze some of the ideas and solutions from Dr. Madhu into our system and inject that, on a timely basis.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, thanks. I think you've captured my sentiments quite well. I think for me, one of the more salient points that Ernest made was the fact that 2 hours, Joe. 2 hours. Before, even if you had a private jet on the tarmac there, it wouldn't be sufficient time to get you to Florida or to the nearest cardiovascular center to get a PCI done. So it means that if we are to achieve the outcomes that Ernest spoke about, we need to have some of those services on island. And it's too frequent, it's too big a problem for us to not find some way to address it. What form that will take, what that would look like, it's for all of us to come together. And I said it has to be done through public-private sector partnership. We didn't get to the part of healthcare financing, which might be part 2 of this show, because certainly I would like to get Ernest when he's here again in St. Kitts, which I hope is very soon, and Tommy when she's back here after she's enjoyed the holidays with her family in Arizona, that we can really sit and really look at ways in which we are going to take this one step further. We're coming to the end of our segment, and I want to give everyone a chance to just their closing remarks, but I don't think that it's lost on anyone, despite the technical difficulties and everything that's happened, why this show was important, why it was important. It's a little unusual. We have 2 of our guests who are virtual, the Vice President and the President of the American Dental Association, and co-hosts of this show are together. But it was because of just how important this was, and I think we want to continue to push for advances in healthcare. It is not a nice to have, it is a need to have. It is something that none of us are spared. None of us. We went through COVID, where this country was closed for several months. And that's how I got to know Ernest, by the way, because in the middle of COVID, when this country was completely shut down, I was trying to get a patient across with a cardiovascular situation to Jamaica, to his heart institute, and that's how we knew each other and became fast friends. So closing thoughts, Tommy or Ernest, as we begin to wrap up.
Dr. Badual, oh, okay. Basically, what I would like to say is do not let the momentum die down. The enthusiasm and everything that we saw on the island, roll with that, keep going with that. Keeping that engagement is going to be paramount. Making sure, again, that ongoing training happens. And like Dr. Joy said, she's brilliant. You have brilliant medical providers on your island. Utilize them. They can be trained to not only perform this, but to teach this as well. And CPR Solutions would be more than happy to help in any aspect that we can be to increase survival rates on St. Kitts and Nevis.
Ernest, I want to thank you again. I know this was, you're in the terminal. I imagine that you're perhaps a bit exhausted. I'm really grateful that you took the time out from what is by no means a busy schedule. I've spoken to Ernest in just this week alone, and every time I've spoken to him, he's been in a different country. So certainly on the move. But I want to thank you again for taking the time. I want to thank you for what has already happened, and I am certainly excited about what is to come. There are so many reasons why I think you are a valuable partner in this. I think the frame of reference for which you view healthcare, the prism for which you view healthcare is very important. What you've done in Jamaica in terms of breaking ground there and what cardiovascular care looks like in Jamaica today, I certainly envy that, and that's the reason why this partnership means so much to me, and I think the people of St. Kitts. Any closing remarks from you, my friend?
Thank you.
Do we have? Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, I have you now.
Okay, no, yeah, so thanks. Just one final comment. I'm a very strong believer in translating words into actions for effective transformation of a healthcare system. Otherwise, we'll be having the same conversations year after year. And that has been the unfortunate situation many countries and communities have found themselves without moving the needle. I think that St. Kitts, however, does have an advantage that you may not have for a long time after this. The fact that the Prime Minister is a physician, is also Minister of Health, and he is committed to seeing a significant improvement in healthcare system in St. Kitts and Nevis. And the fact that you have the leadership of the medical fraternity that is motivated to see a change, the fact that you have physicians and nurses that are motivated to see an improvement, and the community healthcare is on the top of the agenda. When I was in St. Kitts, I talked to people. So I think there is no better time than this to make a transformative change in the way healthcare is delivered in St. Kitts and Nevis. And if you begin with cardiovascular disease, and I think it's so easy to make a change that will be very positive and very significant in the lives of people. It only takes one person to have a cardiac arrest to see why an investment in preventing that cardiac arrest would have been a wise decision to make. So I will encourage all the stakeholders to seriously think about fixed timelines to get some things done. And so we can actually see the impacts right away. And I go back, telecardiology consultations can begin almost immediately. Whole tasks can be deployed almost immediately. More effective management of cardiovascular care can begin almost immediately because we can develop clusters of care within the community. You don't have to be cardiologists. If you have individuals who are interested in cardiovascular care, they could become the point persons in the island, and they can work with cardiologists at the Heart Institute of the Caribbean through telecardiology consultations. All electrocardiograms done can have a secondary review by a cardiologist so that we don't miss things. We can put these things in place, and we can talk about healthcare financing at another time. but there are simple models of financing healthcare that will make it affordable for a lot of people if there is a political will to do that.
Way past time, and Joy. Again, I want to thank you so much. Again, I want to say thanks to you and thanks to all those individuals who are committed to seeing that change. Thanks to our Prime Minister and a colleague. I still call him. I would have said former colleague had it not been for that plane incident. That shows that once a doctor, always a doctor, right? So thanks to him again for just the commitment to healthcare. The changes that we've seen. I know that it is not lost on anyone. The impact of Poxon, having 24/7 care and doctors being provided by doctors, that is huge. That is those are some of the things that makes me feel extremely hopeful, very, very, very passionate, and also willing to work with even closer with individuals like yourself. So thank you so much. I'm not sure whether you want to say 30 seconds or less, 10 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. I just want to thank Dr. Madhu and Tommy Jordan for willingly giving us their services in such a short space of time too. And they came here and they gave us their all. I didn't feel shortchanged at all. I am actually comforted that our doctors, they are now at a different level, not just professionally, but in terms of their thinking personally. And they know where they need to go to get themselves prepared. I'm also thanking them for letting us look at their models from their different institutions. Right. Because sometimes we're in the smaller country, we need to see these models. And if we cannot put all of it in place, at least put some of it in place. Because in doing so, we're actually improving the healthcare of our federation. I also want to say a big thank you to our colleague, our friend, Dr. Drew, who is always willing. We just need to go, and he says, get it done. Okay, so this has been great. I don't think this would be our last interaction as it relates to CPR saving lives. Right. And I want to assure Dr. Madhu and Tommy Jordan that we will not let this momentum die.
Yes, certainly.
We're going to keep on it. We're going to keep pushing on because we have to get it right. We have to get there. So on that, I want to say thank you to everyone for listening. If you didn't call in, that's no problem. You can meet us on the street. You can get to us wherever you can so that we can answer more questions for you. Have a great week.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for joining. Again, we are making strides in healthcare, yes, but you also have a personal responsibility to yourself. I have seen the number of individuals who are out on the road exercising because they want to look good in their carnival costumes. But remember that, we have to create a culture, a society of wellness, a culture of wellness in our homes, what we eat, taking time out for exercise, reducing, alcohol consumption as best we can, and really ensuring that we prevent some of those very same things we're talking about right now, because a lot of it is preventable. Meet us, as Joy said, on the streets if you need to, but begin to engage with your healthcare providers. And I wish you good health. Thank you for staying with us. I hope some of the information that you received tonight was valuable, and we look forward to seeing you again when next we meet for another episode of Healthwise. Have a good night, everyone, and thanks to the guys in the studios as well who stayed a few extra minutes with us. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.